Good day everyone! I'm Crystal Bulawin and I'll be reporting on our last lesson in TTL 2. My topic is learning plan development, which is a crucial skill for us as a future educators. This learning plan is like a teacher's roadmap or a blueprint in which it helps us decide what to teach, how to teach it, and how to check if our students really learn. It helps us organize lessons effectively to meet the needs of our students, and it helps us ensure our lessons are clear, structured, and student-centered. But before that, let's have our objective. First, analyze the principles and components of effective learning plan development to create instructional objectives that align with curriculum standards. Second, evaluate the effectiveness of various instructional strategies and materials in meeting diverse learner needs. Third, design a comprehensive learning plan that integrates instructional objectives, activities, and assessment effectively. And lastly, value the importance of learner-centered approaches in creating inclusive and engaging learning plans that cater to diverse learning styles and needs. So these objectives will guide us in understanding what we need to accomplish by the end of the lesson. For the introduction, developing a learning plan involves systematically outlining the objectives, methods, resources, and timeline needed to achieve a specific learning goal. For us as a future educator, developing a learning plan means using technology and data to set personalized goals. So choose effective methods, assess digital resources, and follow flexible timelines to help each student succeed. So now, here's a step-by-step guide to create an effective learning plan. Let's break down the steps of developing a learning plan. So the first one is identify the learning goals. The purpose is what do you want to achieve? And the specific objectives is break down the goal into measurable outcomes. So use action verbs aligned with Bloom's taxonomy, like for example, identify, analyze, and create. The relevance of this is explain why the goal is significant to the learner. In identifying the learning goals, the teacher wants the students to learn. This is about setting what the students should achieve at the end of the lesson. So for me, as a future educator, I must set clear goals for my students. And I want them to learn not only how to solve equations, but also understand how they can apply math into their daily life or in their daily decisions. Like for example, students will be able to solve linear equations and apply them to real-life budgeting problems. So this is important because budgeting is a useful life skill. And that is identifying the learning goals. The second one is assess current knowledge and skills. So identify the learner's strength and areas for improvement. Use assessments, self-evaluations, or prior experience to understand their starting point. So here, we must know where the student should start and understand the learner's current level through assessments. Like for example, just continuing this first step, example which is budgeting. Here, before starting, I'll ask, do my students know what a budget is? Have they ever saved or planned their allowance? So I might use a short questionnaire or a group discussion to gauge their understanding. So through this, I'll able to check if they understand what is the basic operation and introduce them the idea of setting up an equation. The third step is define learning outcomes. It states what the learner should know or be able to do by the end of the learning plan. Like for example, by the end of this plan, students will be able to demonstrate proper safety measures in an electrical workshop. So when we say define learning outcome, this is about what learners should know or do by the end of the plan. These are measurable results of the learning and the specific result you want. Just like the example for other step about budgeting, you must set an objective at the end of your learning plan. Like for example, by the end of this plan, students will be able to list their weekly expenses and create a basic budget with at least 3 categories: the needs, the wants, and the savings. Through this step, the students will be able to see the outcomes of the plan. The fourth step is select instructional methods. So choose the most effective strategies for delivering content. So this step is about deciding how you'll deliver the content to meet your learning objectives effectively. Different methods work better depending on your subjects, learners' needs, and available resources. So first is direct instruction. So this includes structured format lectures, demonstrations, and presentations. Next is interactive learning. The methods like group discussion, role-playing, hands-on activities, simulation, and case studies for faster critical thinking and collaboration. And lastly, self-paced learning. Those online courses, independent reading, or videos that allow students to take ownership of their learning by working through content independently. The next step is choose resources and materials. Once instructional methods are chosen, determine what materials and tools will support your teaching and enhance learning. So identify tools needed to support learning. The textbook, handouts, multimedia resources, these provide foundational content and allow for different learning styles. The second is access to technology or laboratory equipment. This ensures students have access to required digital tools or instruments, especially for STEM or tech-integrated subjects. The next is guest speakers or field trips, if applicable, which enrich learning by exposing students to real-world context and expert knowledge. Like for budgeting example, the materials needed is budget templates, the printed or digital, the projector and slide for direct instruction, the calculators or spreadsheets software, internet access for online tools or simulations, and lastly, video explaining common budgeting mistakes. And that is for number 5 step. The next step is develop an activity schedule. So plan activities in a sequence that builds on prior knowledge. This means that it starts where your students already are, then gradually guide them to more complex tasks. When lessons build on what students already understand, they are more confident and less likely to get lost or confused. Next is include deadlines or milestones to track progress. So set clear goals with time frames to make sure students are on track. Deadlines and checkpoints help both the teacher and student see progress. They also ensure the class doesn't fall behind the schedule. Next is allow flexibility to adapt to unforeseen challenges. So be ready to change your plan if something unexpected happens. Every class is different. Flexibility helps create a supportive learning environment and ensure all students keep up. So as a future educator, I must plan lessons that connect with what students already know, set clear progress, checkpoints, and stay flexible when challenges come up. This approach makes learning more effective, organized, and responsive to students' needs. Sequence activities for smooth flow, organize the lesson flow. The number 7 step is integrate assessment methods. So check if students are learning. So use formative assessment like quizzes, discussions, for ongoing feedback. So use small information assessment during the lesson to check students' understanding. Formative assessments are tools like discussion and quizzes, think, pair, share, or even asking questions during the lessons. So these are not graded. Their main purpose is to give feedback to both the teacher and the students. So formative assessment help identify misunderstanding early. So as a teacher, they can correct them before moving on. Next is include summative assessment like project tests to evaluate learning outcomes. So using a formal assessment at the end of a lesson or unit to evaluate what students have truly learned. Summative assessments include written test, performance test, final project or presentations. These are usually graded and used for reporting progress. So through this, it helps measure whether the students achieve the learning objectives and show overall progress. And lastly, incorporate self-reflection opportunities to promote metacognition. So give students time to think about their own learning progress, what they understood, what they found hard, and how they can improve. So metacognition is thinking about thinking. It helps students become independent, lifelong learners. So use reflection tools like journals, exit slips, or short surveys. So through reflection, it helps students become more aware of their strengths and areas of improvement, and it encourages them to take ownership of their own learning. Overall, for this step, as a future teacher, I will or do use a formative assessment to guide and adjust teaching during the lesson, use summative assessment to evaluate final learning, and include self-reflection to help my students to grow in their awareness and responsibility as learners. Number 8 step, include reflection and feedback. Regularly evaluate the plan's effectiveness. So this means as a teacher, I should not assume that my lesson plan is perfect. I must continuously check if it is actually helping students learn. This reflection helped me improve future lessons and make my teaching more effective. It shows that I care about the quality of learning, not just finishing a lesson. Next is gather feedback from learners to adjust activities, methods, or resources as needed. So this means I should also listen to my students, their experiences, challenges, and suggestions to make the lesson better. It is important because feedback gives me insight into how students experience my teaching, help me make necessary changes, and this also makes students feel heard and involved, which increases motivation. So as a future educator, it's important to evaluate the teaching regularly to ensure that learning goals are being met, and listen to students' feedback to improve our methods, our materials, and classroom experiences. Remember, teaching is not just delivering lessons. It's about continuously improving for the benefit
benefit of learners. Number 9 step is address challenges and barriers. First, anticipate obstacles like, for example, limited resources and time constraints. So, this means, before teaching, think ahead about possible problems that could disrupt your lesson or make it difficult for students to succeed. Some or common obstacles include the limited resources. First is no projector, not enough printed materials, poor internet connection. Second, time constraint, so not enough time to finish an activity. The third could be students with varying skill levels. Another is absenteeism or classroom interruptions. So, as a future teacher, I must be realistic and prepared. Not everything will go according to plan. Next is develop solutions such as alternative materials or flexible deadlines. So this means have a backup plan or adjust your approach to keep the learning going, even when problems arise. Example of solutions: no projector, use printed out, or draw the content on the board. Not enough time for a group activity, turn it into a homework task or extend it the next day. Student absent for a test, allow a make-up schedule. Internet failure, switch to offline activities or paper-based resources. Why this is important? Because being prepared for challenges and responding with flexibility shows, first, professionalism, second, responsiveness to student needs, and third, a commitment to ensuring that learning continues no matter what. It also builds your reputation as an adaptive and resilient teacher. So for me, as a future educator, I must always predict possible challenges in advance. The last step is finalize and review the plan. First is share the plan with stakeholders like the teachers, the parents, and the students. So meaning, before implementing your lesson or learning plan, communicate it with the people involved or affected by it. Because sharing your plan helps build transparency, trust, and support. It ensures that everyone involved is on the same page. Like for example, you share your lesson plan with your mentor teacher to get advice. You inform parents about a take-home math project so they can support their child. Then, you give students a simple overview of the lesson flow or assessment criteria. And the next one, make revisions based on feedback before implementation. So meaning, use the feedback from those stakeholders to improve your plan before using it in class. So your mentor teacher might suggest better resources or time adjustment. The parents may let you know about accessibility issues. And the student might express anxiety about the test and request more review time. So through this, revising your plan based on the feedback ensures that it is more realistic and inclusive, better tailored to students' needs, and more likely to succeed during actual implementation. So for us, or for me as a future educator, I should share my learning plans with relevant people for support and clarity. Second, listen to their feedback and use it to improve my lessons. And lastly, remember that teaching is a collaborative effort, not something I do alone. So through these steps, it helps to create a learning experience that is well-informed, supportive, and student-centered. Lastly, GRAST framework. The GRAST framework can be considered as a component of a learning plan. So what is GRAST? GRAST is a framework used to design performance tasks, which are tasks where students demonstrate their understanding by doing something real or meaningful, not just answering test questions. So GRAST is an acronym for designing performance tasks in the context of understanding by design UBIDO, an approach to backward curriculum planning developed by Grant Wiggins and J. McTighe. It emphasizes creating meaningful learning experiences that align with desired outcomes. So GRAST is part of understanding by design UBD, a teaching model by Grant Wiggins and J. McTighe. UBD focuses on backward planning, which means you start with your goals, what you want students to learn, then plan lessons and activities that led to those goals. The GRAST framework component. For letter G, meaning goal, the purpose or objective of the task. What is the task purpose or what should students achieve? For letter R, role, the role the learner will assume. So, what role is the student taking? Example, problem solver or designer. For letter A, the target audience for the task. So, who is the students presenting to? It's either classmates, community, principal, or teacher. For letter S, the situation, the context or scenario in which the task takes place. Where or what is the real world context or happening on that event or in that performance. For letter P, the product, the performance, the tangible outcome or demonstration of learning. So what is the final output? It's either a poster, video, report, model. And lastly, for letter S, the standard for success, the criteria for evaluating the performance or product. How will the work be judged or what are the criteria or rubric? While GRAST itself is not a full learning plan, it is a tool for designing authentic performance tasks that align with broader instructional objectives. It often serves as one element within a larger learning plan, which includes objectives, teaching methods, materials, and assessment. So, why GRAST is useful in a learning plan? GRAST is not the entire learning plan. It is an important part of it. It helps you create authentic tasks that connects to real life, are engaging and meaningful for students, allow students to show their learning creatively and critically. For example, instead of just solving math equation on a worksheet, a GRASP task might ask students to play the role of a budget planner, creating a weekly spending plan for a family using linear equations. So how it fits in a full learning plan? A full learning plan includes learning objectives, the teaching strategies, the instructional materials, and lastly the assessment, the formative and summative. So GRASP fits into the assessment part, especially when you're designing a performance task. So it ensures the task is realistic, that is aligned with your goals, and lastly has clear expectation for success. So as a future educator, we will use GRASP to design tasks that let students apply what they've learned in real-world ways. Remember, it's a tool within your lesson plan, not a replacement for the full plan. GRASP task helps students engage deeply and demonstrate understanding authentically. So that could be all for my part. Thank you for listening, and God bless us all.